Big news in the motorcycle industry today. Indian has been sold by Polaris, and that represents a big transition for Indian motorcycles and a big change in the motorcycle industry, because obviously Indian is a very big motorcycle brand. They've been around for a long time, and they've been with Polaris for a pretty long time, since 2011. So this big news comes with a lot of caveats, a lot of things that we have to talk about. And let's break down the transaction to begin with. So Polaris sold their majority stake in Indian Motorcycles. They still retain some small amount of equity, and a lot of that is undisclosed. There are particular aspects of this deal, specific numbers that aren't being released or talked about yet. But Indian Motorcycles has been sold to a California-based private equity firm called Carolwood LP. So this is pretty interesting. Carolwood LP, they've been around for a little while. They have other businesses in their portfolio, but those businesses aren't motorcycle or automotive related. So while they have been around and they've worked with several other businesses, this seems to be somewhat of a new venture for them. That being said, there is some motorcycle expertise that's going to be infused into Indian Motorcycles as a part of this deal. So when this transition happens, there's going to be a new CEO by the name of Mike Kennedy. Mike Kennedy has been around for a pretty long time. He was formerly the CEO of Vance & Hines, a very familiar company in the motorcycle industry. He was also one of the high-ups at Harley-Davidson for a very long time, over 20 years. So Mike Kennedy has a lot of experience in the motorcycle industry, which is potentially good. That could bring some much-needed expertise into Indian as they transition and go through what is bound to be a new period. So as Mike Kennedy comes in, Mike Doherty, who is the head of a lot of the on-road stuff over at Polaris, he's going to transition out, and it sounds like he's going to be moving towards retiring. Now, in this deal, it's also important to talk about what this means for customers, because obviously anybody who's shopping around for an Indian motorcycle or who has recently bought one or even had an Indian motorcycle for a long time might be wondering what's going to happen. What's going to happen to the dealer networks? What's going to happen to service? What's going to happen to the future motorcycle lineups? Now, they haven't talked about any changes or transitions that I've seen in the motorcycle lineups themselves. So as far as we know, that's going to remain unchanged. But what they have said specifically is that they plan to stick with their existing dealer network. So you should still be able to go into your same dealers, the same stores, be able to buy Indian motorcycles and have them serviced and get parts where you have in the past. So for the customers, it doesn't seem like things are necessarily going to change very much, ideally. But we also want to talk a little bit about what this potentially means for employees of the Indian Motorcycle Company, because that is one of the things that can change a lot when a company is bought, especially when they're bought by a private equity firm. Now, what they're saying so far as a part of this deal is that they plan to retain around 900 of their existing employees and all of their current facilities for manufacturing, research and development, design, their corporate facilities. Depending on how you add it up, there's over 1,000 employees that work at Indian, but at the same time, some of those employees also have a role at Polaris. So there may be some employees that stay with Polaris as Indian Motorcycles spins off into its own standalone company. So it seems like they're planning to retain most of their employees and their facilities. They haven't said anything about stripping down and shutting things down. And this deal, in a lot of ways, kind of makes sense for Polaris. Like I said, they've been with Polaris for a pretty long time, since 2011, but really Polaris's core business are other off-road vehicles, not necessarily on-road vehicles like motorcycles. So Indian is a little bit of a different kind of brand for Polaris, and as big as Polaris and all of its sub-brands are, though Indian Motorcycles is a big company that sells quite a few bikes, they only made up about 7% of the revenue for Polaris in the last 12-month period ending June 30th. So it's a decent chunk, but Polaris, it seems, figures they'll benefit more from the money that will come from selling off this majority stake, and they at least claim that this is going to be good for Polaris because Polaris can focus on the things that they do best and that they do the most, and then Indian can be off on their own to focus on motorcycles as well. But of course, that's always how they're going to pitch these things whenever there's a big deal like this that's made. Now, I've been on the internet. I've read comments, things on Reddit and things on YouTube, and obviously there are a lot of people that are very concerned about this deal and concerned about the future of Indian, understandably so. Private equity firms have definitely the reputation, at least, for taking companies, stripping them down, making everything look really good on paper, and then selling it after not too much time. But that being said, there are examples of times when private equity firms have actually helped motorcycle companies in the past. So back in 2006, when I was kind of a wee lad, there was a private equity firm based out of Italy that helped out Ducati and helped them weather the storm during the financial crisis then, and Ducati is doing pretty well now. And in fact, Indian has had a pretty long, storied past themselves. As most people know, Indian was founded in 1901, so it is a brand that's been around for a long time, but over the 100-plus years, many, many things have changed for Indian. For example, in 1953, they were having financial troubles, so they ceased production on new motorcycles and closed their doors for quite a few years. Then they were started up again in 1999, but after some more financial issues, they stopped production again in 2003. So these kind of things have happened a few times in Indian's past. That's not strictly what's happening right now. But back in 2006, after they had closed their doors and they were being started up again, a private equity firm was part of what helped them start things back up in 2006, and then they were bought by Polaris in 2011. So even in Indian's history, they've been involved with private equity firms in the past. So this is not necessarily something that's completely new, though I understand why people might be a little bit concerned about the future of the company, because without a doubt, this is definitely a transition. It's a transition in leadership. It may very well be a transition in the direction of the company, but there's so much about this deal that still remains to be seen, because we're just getting the initial bit of news that this is happening, but what we don't know yet is what it's going to mean for the future of the products, for service, for parts, for dealerships. So that's all stuff that we're just going to have to stay tuned and see what happens as the story develops, because this is breaking news and it's ongoing. And we'll make sure to try and keep everybody updated as time goes on. But we've enjoyed Indian motorcycles a whole lot in the past. We've spent quite a bit of time with some of these bikes. They make some great products, and we're based here in America, so we love riding some bikes that come from America and have a lot of history in the country here. And of course, the motorcycle industry benefits a lot from competition as well. So we want to see Indian motorcycles do well. We want to see these bikes stick around, especially because King of the Baggers is a whole lot of fun to watch. So there's a lot that's good about what Indian's done in the past many years. And I'm hopeful that this new chapter will also be good for Indian motorcycles and for motorcycle riders and enthusiasts all the way around, because Indian in the last many years has brought out some awesome motorcycles, and we want to see them keep doing that. So let me know in the comments down below what you all think. And I also want to say a quick thanks to Scott and the team over at Rider Justice, because we've been working with them for a really long time. So if you're an existing motorcycle rider of any brand and you're ever in an incident and you need legal representation, make sure you call Scott first, because they work with people all over the country, and they're just awesome people to work with. Not only lawyers, but motorcycle enthusiasts as well. So you can check them out using the link below. Once again, I want to hear from everybody out there, potentially a lot of riders that have been around for a lot longer than I have, and have maybe even remember back in 2006 when Ducati was going through some similar things to what we're talking about here. And yeah, that's all for this video. We'll see what the future holds, and we'll see you next time.